Hey, hi everyone. This is Sai from Let's Upgrade. So let's talk about how to get your certificate. It's very simple. You will see two links in the description. Number one is the place where you have to go and mark your attendance. Marking your attendance tells us like, okay, you are a legit student who have attended this particular session. Link number two is your assignment. This is where your 90% of the priority is. You have to go and submit the assignment that is given to you in this particular session. Once you're done submitting that assignment, we will be evaluating that. We will send you an email. If you get the passing criteria, then only we will give you the certificate on a particular date that is mentioned again in the description. Please check these three things, and this is the way how you will get a certificate from Let's Upgrade. Number one, mark your attendance. Number two, just go ahead and upload your assignment. Check for the email that you have received it, yes or no. What is the feedback that you have received from your trainer? Number three, check on which date the certificates will be released. Thank you. Bye. All the best. Happy learning.
So, hello students, welcome back. We are again getting started with a new session today. And as of today's session, we are going to have one of the most important topic covered, which is without this topic which we are going to study today. This is one data structure that we learn at the very first, the most basic data structure. We are going to learn about it today only. So, without wasting any more time, let me just write down the name of the topic. Our agenda as of today's session would be to cover two most important topics, not only one, but two most important topics. One is arrays, most important, and other one is going to be strings. So both are one of the most widely used topics, most famous data structures you can say. So one very small identification I can simply mention right now here. Heard about different data structures at different point of time in your life. You might practice them, and each of the topic might be having some more number of questions, some less number of questions to cover it entirely. Like I can give you a straightforward example. Like dynamic programming is one topic of DSA, which is not having too much questions. Once you are able to cover all those questions, let's just assume 25 questions. Once you are able to cover all 25 types of categories, then that topic would be over. But on the other side, arrays and strings is one is such a topic which has infinite number of questions. It means you might face easiest question of your life from this topic, and you might also face hardest question of your life from these topics. That is why these two topics are the one which people practice the most. So that's exactly why we are going to study it in such depth that it will be much clearer and crystal clear to each and everyone. Okay, all right. So first of all, let's just start with arrays. We'll talk about strings after this. First of all, simple definition would be required that what exactly is an array that we are saying it is very, very important. Let me just mark it as important. So, array is defined as, I can simply say it is defined as collection of similar type of data type. We have learned about data types in the previous session. What exactly is a data type? It's a category of a, you can say, variable. That is, variable can be of these many data types. So there we found out that each variable can be of one type of data type, but that is only a single entity. That was only a single unit or single entity. What if in some scenarios we wanted to work with multiple such quantities, and obviously we would need to manage them in a proper way? That's where arrays appears. Well, array is a data structure which stores all the similar type of data types together. So what exactly this array looks like? If I want to imagine our array, how would it look like? Well, it would look like something like this. This is what actual structure of an array looks like. Now, this array also, just like our data type, this array also can be of different type of data type. That means what I meant to say is, assuming this array is of type int. Let's just assume that for the beginning. Just for sake of information, we are assuming that this array is integer type of data type. So as according to definition, it is saying it is a collection of similar type of data type. And if array is of int type, that means every single entity Every single element that we are going to place inside these boxes are going to be of integer type. That means similar data type. You cannot simply store int data type here and again int here, and then you can say I am going to store boolean here. That is not allowed. You cannot store string here. If your array is defined as integer type of data type, then all the numbers, all the entities will be of integer only. That means right now, if you have created this array as of integer data type, so it can look like something like this. Any random numbers could be there. Any type of numbers within our range can be there. Do not assume, one important point here is, do not assume that 5 and let's suppose 7.0, well, both of them look similar only. If I have 7 here and 7.0 here, both of them might look similar only, but that is also not allowed. Decimal numbers will also not be allowed because those are not integer type of data type. Those are either float or decimal. So only whole numbers can be here if your data type is of int type. Well, obviously, apart from you can also have different type. You can also create a boolean type of. In that case, your array will be contain only boolean type of values. That means either true or false, nothing more than that. You can also have string. We can have all the data types that we have learned earlier. Float type of array as well. We can have double type of array as well. String type of boolean done. We can also have char type of array. We can also have char type of array. That is allowed to us. And in future, when we go advanced, then you will be able to find there are other things which you can store inside the array as well. You can even store a whole class here in each of these boxes. In each of these boxes, you can even store the whole class, and a class can contain anything else. But we are not going to that part as of now. As of now, we are simply keeping here only. So moving forward, one important point we have already mentioned here, that is our array is a collection of similar type of data type. Let me just organize it in a proper way like this. And one more important point I would just like to mention here itself. In array, data is stored in continuous manner. What this line means is, that means all the data that we are storing, assuming, let's just assume that we are having 5, or here how many elements do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's suppose 8 elements we have, 8 data elements we have. And if I want to store it in an array, well, in reality, array is just a data structure, and obviously it uses computers memory, systems memory, to store information. Here we are just imagining that it is storing in each and every element, each and every box, but in reality obviously it will be storing in computers memory. Because it is storing in computers memory, there also we have some places to store this data. In those places, it that memory actually looks like a net which is having small boxes, uh, almost infinite number of small boxes. But I am saying in the second line here is, whenever I'm trying to store data in an array, it will always be getting stored one after another. That means in a continuous manner. Our data in array will not be stored randomly at different addresses. Those boxes are actually having addresses for us to locate those elements. Let's just not get any complex in this part. But what I'm trying to say is that every data stores in a continuous manner. That means what its profit is, if you have address of the first element, if you have location of the first element, you can easily access other elements as well, their consecutive elements as well, because you are totally aware that if I have the location of first element, I will be having location of all the other elements as well, because they are all in continuous manner itself. We do not have to find it in the entire uh, memory. So that actually saves a lot of time. That is why we are having very fast operations in arrays. That is why it is also widely used as well. So that is some advantage we have of array. Now another important thing comes, that is, how do we define an array? Well, we have got to know, of course, that this is what array is and it is having such advantages. Very nice. But now I want to use it. How do I use it? So let me just write down syntax of how do you define an array. We have to mention data type first of all. That is what type of array I want to create. Then afterwards, I will be placing two square brackets, one opening and one closing, with some space. I am going to write down the array name, whatever variable name I want to place, array name. Then with equal to, I am going to say new, and again same data type here as well. And one last time, square brackets I'm going to have, inside which we are going to mention the size of our array. We are going to just end this statement. This is what syntax of our array looks like. So let me just try to use this. Let's have an example. Same example, let's suppose. Let's suppose I just want to create this array itself. So we already know that this array is having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what I want to do is I want to create an integer type of array which is having size 8. So what I will do is I will simply mention int, because which is the data type, then our square brackets which are going to be empty only, and then our array name. This could be anything as according to our requirement. So I am going to simply name it as ARR with assignment operator, that means equal to. I am going to mention keyword new. This is a keyword. Please make sure to note it down that this new is a keyword and it is a very, very important keyword. After new, we are going to mention again same data type, and with square brackets, I'm going to mention the size of this array, which is going to be 8 as according to my requirement. Now, actual structure of this array looks like this. Not like this, but right now these numbers are not present inside this array. So we do have an array, but it is empty only. This array is having name ARR. One important point you can note down here is newly defined int array will be containing will be containing zero value by default. That means because I haven't mentioned any number inside these indexes as of now, so right now by default it will be containing number 0 in all the indexes, in all the places. And that is true for Java language only. That means if you go to other languages, there are other rules to get the default values. Like in C++, there are garbage values. In Java, there is zero value, which is going to be there by default. So by this line, we have created this array. Done. One very important point here is each uh, location, each location on array is always imaginary number. So indexing is also another concept which is present in array. That means every location here that we can see is having an imaginary number assigned to it. and it always starts from zero. Very, very important point to note. It always starts from zero and it will be keep on going in the forward direction one by one. So that means if your array size is 8, then the very last index of your array will always be one less than your size. Obviously, because your numbering is getting started from 0. From now on, our numbering will start from 0 instead of 1, which will give us a good practice. So that is one important point which we have noted down. Please make sure to note down all these notes because these are important. So, as we have now got to know about the basics of how array would look like, how do we define an array? Now, obviously, we wanted to perform some operations on the arrays. That means if I wanted to get the value which is placed at a particular index, from now on, we are going to mention the word index. So, make sure instead of location, you will say index. So let's suppose if I wanted to update the element at a particular index, then how do we do that? If I wanted to get the element, get the value at a particular element, then how do we do that? Things like that. If we wanted to perform, then how do we do that? Let's just look into that. How to access. Let's suppose this particular array, we are going to reuse the same particular array. We are going to imagine these numbering as well because every array will be having these indexing. If I wanted, let's suppose this number, this 7 I wanted to access, then how do I do that? I can obviously, I need to store that number somewhere. Let's suppose I have created a variable a inside which I wanted to store this number. So what I will do is I will simply use this array name, whatever the name of that array would be. And with square brackets, I am going to simply mention the index here. If I mention 4, it will simply provide us the value 7. As simple as that. That's all. Majorly square brackets are will be in a major point while you are dealing with arrays. Let's suppose now in case if I wanted to access -2, then what will we do? As you might have guessed, right, I am going to mention the array name and then inside the square brackets I am going to mention the index which is 1. Now this question might come to your mind, that is, if I can place any number inside the square brackets, why cannot I just place -1 or maybe 9 or 8 which is not present here? Well, you can place the number there but it will not give you any valid output. Any number outside the range of array will give, it will obviously going to give us exception. But what kind of exception? What is the name of the exception will be? The exception name would be index out of bound exception. This will be the name of the exception, as it is very self-explanatory that our index that we are trying to place is out of the range of our array. Let's suppose we have, how do we access the element in the array? Let's suppose now I wanted to check how do I update the element in array, update the value in array. Obviously, assuming that we still have this same array present to us. So what we will do is, let's suppose our task is to update this 100 into -100, or let's suppose this 100 to 200. I wanted to update this. What I will do is, obviously I would need to access this particular area and then update the value. Again, I have to access the same particular area, the same particular index. So what I will do is I'm going to use the exact same way which I have used earlier. That is, I'm going to use my array name, whatever that array name might be. And then with square brackets, I am going to mention its index. Once I did that, now I am at this particular index, and now I can do whatever I want right here. So what I will do is I will simply assignment operator I will use and assign an updated value to this index, which is going to be, and that's all. This is how we can simply update the value at a particular index. Please make sure to note it down. So I am assuming that I hope you guys must have noted it down, noted down the important points here. There are a couple of small points which I would like to mention right here at this place itself. There are we are having some number of inbuilt functions present in array. Let's suppose if you have this array name, if you have this array name and you wanted to know that what is the size of this array, how many elements is it actually containing. Let's suppose if it is not defined by us, if this array is not defined by us, that means we would definitely need to know that what would be the size of this array. It is going to be very useful. That is, there are many inbuilt functions we have for each data structure. You can definitely go and check out over the Google. You might find it over Geeks for Geeks website. That is how many inbuilt functions and what are all the inbuilt functions we have for each uh, maybe array, and then with for different data types, data structures. One of the most important one, actually two most important ones are right here, which I'm going to mention. That is, if we want to find, let's suppose if we want to know length of array. So what we are going to do is, if we already have array name, we are going to take the array name, and with a dot, I am going to mention simply length. That's all. Without any parenthesis. We do not need any parenthesis right here to access the length of the array. So this will be the inbuilt function. Please make sure to note it down as well. And apart from this, another important point which I would like to mention here is there is one speciality in array. That is, array is static in nature. What do I mean by that? That is, if some data structure is static, that means its size is not changeable. That means once you have defined an array, just like what we have did right here. Once we have created this line, once we have written this line and we defined the size of the array as 8, in its entire future, it can never change its size. It will always and always remain 8 size only. Well, it is very important to mention it right here because there are other data structures whose size can be changed. That means you might be performing some number of operations on some of the data structures, and later on in future you are able to increase its size. You are able to change the size from 8 to 9 and then 10 and then 11. You might also be able to decrease the size of those data structures, but for array it is not possible. For array, you can have only one and only one single size which you have defined at the very beginning of its initialization, or you can say of its declaration. So now if we are aware about these things in array, so now question appears that how array is useful to us. Well, it is obviously useful because it is storing many number of elements and we are able to manipulate them according to our need. Well, very good question. Again appears that how are we manipulating these elements? Well, obviously, we need to reach at each of the element one by one and then change it according to our need. How do we reach them? That is the point which we are going to cover right now. How do we traverse on array? or you can say travel. Both are same only. How do we travel on the array? Right now, let's just simply travel on the array and print all the elements. Let's just try to do that. Let me just explain you this first of all. That is, for traversing on any of anything, we obviously need a loop. Okay. So right now we are going to use for loop as an example. Let's just say, let me just bring our array here itself, array here as well. Let's suppose I want to traverse on this particular array. What I will do is I will simply write down a loop, for loop. And as you might already remember the syntax of our for loop, the very first part of our for loop is simply initialization of a variable. So what I will do is I will simply initialize a variable I starting from 0. I'm going to start this number from 0 from now on instead of 1. Because reason of that is because we need indexing to access each element, and indexing is definitely getting started from 0. So we do not want any of the element to miss. That is why we are starting from the very beginning, that is 0th index. Then with the semicolon, we have initialized our I variable from 0. Now, second part will be containing a stopping condition. That is up till what number are we traversing? Well, here we are totally aware that size of the array is simply 8. That means last index will be 7 only. So what I will do is I will simply say keep on moving, keep on running the loop until your value I is less than or equal to 7. That means until it reaches the value 7. Third part would obviously be upgradation, which is getting changed by +1 every time. So I will simply say I plus plus right here. Now inside the curly brackets, what I would like to do is I would simply like to, what our task was to print each and every element. And obviously, to print each and every element, you would need to access each and every element, which you already aware about. How do we access each and every element? By using the array name and then with a square bracket, its index. And as you can remember, just now we have declared the index as I. So what I will do is straightforwardly, I will write down a print statement first of all, system.out println. And inside this statement, I am going to simply mention my array name. This array name could be anything. Right now it is ARR. Inside the square brackets, I am going to simply mention the index, which is I in this case. With a semicolon, I'm going to simply end our statement, and that is it. That is how we traverse over array. So now we are totally aware about all the manipulation part of the array and how do we print the elements in the array. One important point I would like just like to mention is in this our case we were previously aware that size of our array is 8 only. That is why what we did is we have simply placed a hard coded number here. That might not be the case each and every time you have got an array whose size you are not aware about. So you will not be able to find this number without any inbuilt function. But fortunately, we already have an inbuilt function which I have just mentioned right now only. How do we find length of the array? Using this inbuilt function, arr.length. So what we can do is instead of putting any hard-coded number anywhere, we would always and always like to mention the inbuilt function, which is going to be arr. And if you can note here, I have removed equal to from here. Previously equal to was there, which I have removed. Why is that? Because arr.length will give you the size of the array, which is obviously going to be, what is it, size of the array is going to be 8 only. And as we can easily observe here, our last index is always going to be 7. Not always 7, but it is always going to be 1 less than the size. If size is appearing as 8, so last index will always be 7. That is why we have not put it any equal to here. Otherwise, it would have gone out of the size of the array, outside the range of the array. So actually, I value is moving from 0 to 7 in this loop. Now, I would like to just give you a homework question which you guys can practice for this part. So, what you are going to do is write a program to create an array and marks of three subjects. Print the average of those numbers. I hope it will be pretty straightforward only, because now you are totally aware about how do you create an array. You are also aware about how do you take input a number, and marks are obviously going to be in number format itself. Finally, you have to traverse over the array again and find the average. I hope everyone is aware about how do you find the average of a number. Great. So now if array part we can call as complete, and let me just mention some important points regarding strings topic as well, because that is also another important point, another important topic that we have, which is obviously very widely used and very important as well. So what exactly is an array? Just like what is in a string, so just like an array, array is collection of similar type of data type, right? What string is actually collection of characters. That's it. As straightforward as it is. That means everyone, each and every one of us are already aware about what character is. Character is simply one single length, alphabet or number or symbol surrounded with single quote. Anything like this is going to be considered as a character. When we have collection of all the characters, then it will be considered as a string. For example, how does it what it looks like is, a string looks like this: A B C D surrounded with double quotes. This is a very important point to note: is string is always surrounded with double quotes. Very important point here is that is, it does not matter what is the length of our string is. If it is surrounded with double quotes, then it is a string. That means secondary, I can say, if I say a small a and I surround it with double quotes, it is also a string. It is not a character anymore. A character can only be surrounded with single quotes. If anything is surrounded with double quotes, it will always be considered as a string. Another important thing here, that is, string does not really matters on what exactly you are storing inside the double quotes. So that means even if I say 1 2 3 4, that is also going to be considered as a string. You can have capital letters as well, and along with that combination of small letters as well. Another example I can say, even if you say capital A 1 then small b then small z, this is also a string because it is surrounded with double quotes. Even if you say double quotes and then imagine two or three spaces here, that is also considered as a string itself. This is also an example of a string, even if it is a space, even if it is a single space, double space, triple space, or any symbol as well. Even if you say there are plus sign and then space and then minus sign, that is also a string. Everything surrounded with double quotes is always going to be considered as a string, as straightforward as that. Now, one property we have just observed in arrays, that is, array contains indexing. Similar to that, string also contains indexing. Let me just write it down because that is very important. string have indexing concept. That means whatever string I define, let me just define a string here. Okay, before going to indexing part, let me just mention about the syntax as well, right? That how exactly we define a string. If I want to define a string, its definition would be, its declaration or initialization will be exactly same as what we have done normally. Only difference is, make sure to remember that string will always be having capital S. Keyword will always be having capital S. That means it looks like this. Capital S, string, string, and then because this is the data type, with the space we have to mention the variable name. I mostly call it str. It is easy for me to remember that this is a string, so I always call it str. And then with assignment operator, we can put any other value here. I'm going to say small a, small b, small c, and small d. With a semicolon, I'm going to end it. This is actually one way through which we can define a string. There is another way as well through which we can define a string. I can say string str is equal to new string. That is also a valid definition, that is also a valid declaration of a string, and then you can easily update the value in a similar way. Now let me just keep this string as an example right here. Now because I just mentioned that string is having indexing concept as well, that means this here we are also going to have some imaginary numbers assigned to it, and indexing always starts from zero no matter where we are talking about indexing. If we are talking about indexing, it is always and always going to start from zero only. So right now indexing assigned as small a is at zero index, small b is at first index, small c is at second index, and small d is at third index. One another point which I can add right here is, just like in array we have found length of the string, length of the array. Here also we have an inbuilt function which we can use. Used to do what? Used to simply find the size of your string. Just same as the array, we also have an inbuilt function, but it looks a little bit different here. That means if I want to know what is the size of my string, I have to simply mention the name of my string, which in this case is going to be simply str, and then with a dot, I can simply mention length, same as array, but here we are going to have a parenthesis as well, which is going to return us a number. It will always this inbuilt function will always return us a number, which is going to mention size of our string. Can someone told me what will it return in this case? If this is the string that we are talking about, then what will be the number we are going to get in return? You might have guessed absolutely right that it is going to return us 4, because that many number of elements we have inside this length. Because the size of the string is 4 only, that means last index will always be one less than the length. Same as the array. Indexing concept is same everywhere. So here also it is same only. Please make sure to note these things down as well. So if you have noted it down, I would like to mention here that apart from this one, in this case, in strings, we have a couple of more inbuilt functions which are very widely used and which are very important as well. Let me just mention those inbuilt function. Those will be pretty straightforward and neat and clean only. So what I will do is I will simply take one new example, and then I will mention all the inbuilt functions given to us. Our example would be, let's suppose if I have defined a string str, which is which looks like this: small abc and then capital ABC. That will be our example. Obviously, I don't think I need to mention it again and again. That is, there will be indexing, which will always be starting from zero. So we are simply going to always assume that this is always there. These yellow numbers are always there, which are called as indexing. The very first inbuilt function which I have told you is find the length of the string. It is going to be str dot length with parenthesis. This is going to return, in this case, it is going to return obviously 6. Very nice. Now, what if a string is given to us, which is this one? Let's suppose I wanted to check what exactly is present at index 2. Which character is present at index 2? Same as array, we can easily access these elements as well using the index. Find character at a index, at a particular index. This is the first one, this is the second one. How do we do that? What do we have to do is we have to simply write down the name of our string, which is str, and then with a dot we have to mention char at, which is simply short for character at, small c and capital A. Our inbuilt function looks like this: char at. That means in this string, what is the character at index, at this particular index? What do we have to do is we have to mention this inbuilt function, and then within the parentheses we have to mention the index as well. So if I say str all aware that this inbuilt function is going to simply return a character, and I hope everyone remembers that character will always be surrounded with single quotes. So it will be containing small c. Exact same thing, but this time I will simply change the index from 2 to, let's suppose, 4. So this time it will be containing capital B as a character. This will be returning capital B as a character. But if I do this thing one last time, and this time I will simply mention 6. What it will do is it will return us exception, because now we have got out of the range of the string. And what is the name of this exception will be? This time it will be string index out of bound exception. This will be the exception name. Great. Let's just talk about another inbuilt function. Let's say I want to change characters to lowercase letters. That means I have some lowercase letters, some uppercase letters randomly placed here. Let's suppose I wanted to have all the letters as lowercase only. So I do have an inbuilt function for that as well. What I can do is I can simply say str dot to lower case. Here L and C are both capital. If I mention that, what will happen is this entire string will be getting returned by converting every single character to small character. So this will be our result: small abc, small abc. And I think it is very obvious that if I wanted to change the character to uppercase, if I want to change all the characters to uppercase, then I again have one inbuilt function, and I hope its name is also very obvious. That is str dot to uppercase. It will be simply returning us a string which is going to convert every single character into uppercase letter. So now this will be the answer which we got in return. All the inbuilt functions, all the major inbuilt functions are done here. But one thing that we can still do here is, assuming that I wanted to print every single character of the string, just like we have printed the elements in the array. Here also I need to traverse. Here also I need to traverse. And again, without any doubt, we already aware that when traversing, we need to have a loop. Let me show you how to traverse. How to traverse and print each character. Obviously, what I will do is I will simply use a for loop, which will be getting started from, because here as well we are talking about indexing. We already know that indexing starts from 0. So what I will do is I will start my indexing from zero, I mean I variable from zero, and we need to have a stopping condition because my last index is 5, so it will be obviously I less than equal to 5, and each time I want to increment the value by plus 1, so I will simply say I plus plus. Now this time I want to access each and every character again using the value I. So what I will do is, how do I access each and every character? Well, for that we have one inbuilt function which I have just mentioned in the previous slide. That means let me store that character in a variable C. How do I do that? Using str dot char at. Make sure to use this A capital and then mention the index here, which in this case will be I. Every time I am accessing a character, and along with accessing, I simply need to print it as well. So I will simply mention system.out. And it will simply done printing the index as well. And now, if we are totally aware about the strings and its inbuilt functions and its functionalities as well, I would simply want to mention a homework question to you all. That means, let's suppose what we need to do is write a program to mention the name, neatly mention the neatly mention a name. In this question, we will be given a string which can be something like, let's suppose I am talking about one name as Naman. Let's suppose it looks like this: N-A capital M A capital N. We need to simply mention it properly. We need to simply change it so that it will look neat and clean. What exactly defines neat and clean? Well, it will be neat and clean only when all the letters are in lowercase except the first one. Please remember that. So in this case, your answer will be looks like this: Naman. Let's suppose I have another name, Ayush. Ayush. Here in this case as well, your correct answer will be Ayush. Initial letters could be small as well. Try to try to solve this problem by yourself, and it might help you. It will definitely understand this string concept in a much better way. So I would say this would be enough for our today's session, with oops concepts in the next session. Thank you very much, each and everyone, for attending this class.